Well, I'm just about ready to start the reassembly process now, I think. I've most of my components cleaned up. I haven't serviced the shutter yet. Everything else is ready to go back in the body, I think. So I'll start at the beginning and we'll see how we go. Almost inevitably I've forgotten something of great importance and we'll have to step backwards a pace or two, but that's just life as we know it. So first I'll just wipe a little bit of molybdenum paste on this shaft here. That's for the shutter release mechanism to run on. And here we have the spring, the return spring for the shutter release. And here we have our bellows struts. Now the bellows struts have been cleaned. A little bit of bending has been done to push things back into position from where they should have been. So I'll just put a bit of synthetic grease in the rear slots there where the rivets run. I won't do the front ones until I'm ready, got all that assembled, because it'll just come off on my fingers. Here we have the shutter release components. I'll just swap those back where they normally sit. This arm couples to the shutter. This arm is coupled to the release, the body release. I'll just put a little bit of molybdenum paste on that shaft there, and that'll distribute itself without any problems. Right, so starting with the struts out in the extended position, first I want to hook this arm over the post, flick it down out of the way and drop the struts down into the body well, making sure nothing's trapped like the bellows. Then we have 4 screws. They all look much the same. That one's for the base, I can tell because I can see a scrap of leather and so forth on it. That's quite a pretty one. That could be in the film cassette well. That one's not bad. And this one's quite a pretty one. That can go in the film cassette well. So we'll take the other one, the one that wasn't quite so marvellous, and fit it at the top. I'll just run that screw in. I won't tighten it right up. That'll do. The one with scraps of leather or adhesive on it, that one obviously came from there. And we have 2 in the film cassette well here. See if I can get them started. I don't suppose you can see much from there. It's good. So all 4 screws are started. Now I can drive them home. You never want to do them all up tight, any of them up tight until they're all in position. You need as much wriggle room as you can find usually. Okay, so the bellows struts are back in place in the body. They seem to work quite well. The shutter release looks good. And I can see I've already made my tactical error number 1. I should have put the arm for the rangefinder back in first. So a quick reverse, I think. And if I remember, when I edit the video, I'll speed up this bit. If I don't remember, you'll get to watch everything again. Back out with that. Pull the bellows forward so I can swing that arm into place. It doesn't want to wriggle. That's it. I'll keep that forward, I think, while I'm working on this, while I'm putting the struts back in place. If I can put a toothpick through the arm. I just want to stop it from falling down while I'm trying to get the bellows struts back in position. Since I don't want it getting tucked behind anything that it should be in front of. That's fine. So, back to our 4 screws. Can't seem to pull the struts back across far enough there. That's better. And it's just as well I discovered that part early in the piece before I had the whole rest of the camera assembled, and then I was going to be stuck wondering how I was going to go about putting it back. The 2 in the cassette well. There you are, it's like it never happened. Next, I want to assemble the focus mount. So if this section, which only goes in one way, and that's not the way, goes in that way, it's got a cut out at the top so that this arm, which can only be moved when the focus lever is back at infinity, can swing down. And for this we have 4 screws that hold it to the front standard. Short, broad-headed screws, which are the same size as is used to hold the accessory shoe on Retina 3C and similar models. Except in that case they'd be chrome plated, and of course these ones are nickel plated. That one doesn't want to pick up the thread for one reason or another. We'll try one of its brothers. That's good. Try this in this position. That's good. That's good. So they've all started. I'm supporting this with my finger from underneath because I'm applying a reasonable amount of downward pressure on the screws while I'm tightening them up so that the screwdriver doesn't slip. If I didn't support it from underneath like this, then the struts would get under stress. Right, so that's good. That can fold back into the body now. And we have 4 more screws that go in here. And the ones I'm looking for are the longer ones, and they run through the mount and hold the bellows to the back of the front standard. One of these was awkward to get out from memory. Probably that one, because that doesn't look as pretty as its mates. Let's see if I can run these screws in. Yes, that's the one that was reluctant to come out, and it's not enthusiastic to go in either, but it is. Alright, so now we have our front standard, our focus mount fixed to the front standard, the bellows fixed behind the front standard, everything in place. And the next components to go on here are the focus helical. Now I've cleaned these components, they're all ready to be lubricated and put back in place. So that's my next trick, because I haven't brought the grease out. Wait till I get it. So here I have the grease, Helimax XP, optical and instrument helicoid grease, which I'm pretty sure I got either on eBay, but however I got hold of it, it was not hard. I just looked it up online, found a supplier. Perhaps it was through Amazon, I forget. So here I've got my helicoid grease. Applied a few patches around the outside. You don't need to fill the threads up entirely with grease, that's counterproductive, and I'll work it in. And I'm quite happy with the feel of that. It feels nice and smooth. So I've wiped off the excess. I'll run a bit round the outer helical here where it's going to sit in the focus mount. I'll put just a tiny dab in here and here in those slots where it runs in the focus mount. There's two posts in the focus mount that connects to, of course. Now ideally I'll place this the correct way up. I'll just check how I'd made my marks on my focus scale ring so that I'd put this the correct way up. I think I put 2 marks at the top. Of course they're just about impossible to see now that I've cleaned it. And 1 at the bottom. Just try it on the mount this way. I'll just check that with my focus scale ring. Yes, that's what I want. The alignment marks are there, they're good. I'll just revolve that so it's not hard back against the mount. And I have the retainer. I'll run a tiny bit of grease around the inside edge of that retainer. Where that holds back against the outer helical. I'm done with that grease, and I should have 6 identical screws to hold this to the hold that in place, and there are 4 identical screws that hold the focus scale ring in place too. So normally I reserve the 4 best for the focus scale ring, because if you have damaged screws in that position, it doesn't hold the focus scale ring correctly, and you end up with problems if that comes loose. But here, a little bit of damage to the screw heads is not a hassle at all. That screw there is a little bit distorted. It's been done up too tight and the head's folded in on itself. It's fine for this position. It wouldn't be any good for holding the focus scale ring on. I want undistorted screws for that. That one's distorted. It may well be that the distorted screws I'm currently using here actually came from the focus scale ring. That wouldn't surprise me at all. That's a good one. That one's distorted. That's a. We have our 6. I've managed to get all the ugly ones in here. I'll check that the outer helical moves freely. It does. Our focus scale ring can go in place, and I can align it with the marks that I'd scribed on the focus scale ring and the outer helical here and here. There were existing alignment marks from previous repairers. I didn't bother to see if they were useful for me. I just made my own marks. As usual, I get the 4 screws started, and once the screws are started, then they can be done up tight. Screws in this position on the focus scale ring do not need to be done up very tight. If you screw them up tight, all you'll do is distort the outer helical or the focus scale ring or both, and cause the whole lot to be stiff so that it won't move smoothly. That's working nicely. I can drop my lever, my connection for the rangefinder arm through here, and make sure that it fits through the struts at this point. This is held to the inner helical with 2 small screws. At this point, I think it might be useful for me to connect the arm here, a rangefinder arm, to this one. So I'll line those up through the hole in the body and find the screw, which has a little collar on it. That's that one. See if I can get that in place. Oh, it's one of those ones I've got to drop into place, I think. I don't think I can lift that into place from there, no. I suppose if I had a magnetic screwdriver, this would be just the time to use it. I think I've cleverly demagnetised all my screwdrivers. Oh, these tweezers aren't the best either, they're not my best pair. Can I get that screw sitting in there? Perhaps I can. Yes. Can I then swing it across? Yeah, look at that. Picked up that hole. So now, as I move the arm, it pivots this post here. And it means that that arm can't get trapped now behind the struts mechanism and cause me grief. Or can it? No, it can't. Why does those struts not want to pull out the position? Oh, there they go. Alright, that looks quite good. What more? Right, the shutter release. Here was our shutter release shaft. I'll just put a tiny smear of molybdenum on the inside of that so that it'll run smoothly, passes through the hole in the body, over the shaft, and basically it pushes there to move that shutter release mechanism. This was held in place with a retainer plate, and the retainer plate sat like that. It had one tiny screw at this end, it had this larger post screw here. And I'll just nip that into place. Now I can do that screw up. This little hole in the plate, that's for the hinge pin. That's where the hinge pin for the front door goes. And we're just about at the stage where the door could be installed. Alright, so I want to apply a little bit of grease to the front struts now. In these slots that I didn't bother to put grease in before because it would only be coming off on my fingers. We have our front door. This has been cleaned. I'm just checking these arms to make sure that they're leaning in a little bit to provide some tension, but not too much. I'm putting a little spot of grease on the pins. And where they go, there are those two paper friction washers. Our hinge pin screws, we'll need those. Alright, now I've got to get this into place. Normally I hook it into the slot at the top, stretch it out and drop it into the slot at the bottom. Making sure my hinge pins holes are aligned. Do that one up. You can see I've released the front struts, allowed them to move back in slightly so that they're not under tension while I'm trying to get these screws in place. Makes it less of a struggle. There we have it. The front standard locks nicely into place. Folds back into place, latches nicely. The focus action is nice and smooth. That's good. The front on these cameras has one single leaf spring in at the back of the mechanism here, which tends to pop the door when you press the button. It won't open it right out, it's never intended to. It's just to pop it off the release so that you can get your thumb around it and open it up completely. So that's that part of the job done. At this stage I can close up the base of the camera. All I have to do here is glue back my leather. As I said earlier, there's a paper patch. Oh, I won't do that just yet. I'll put my film advance mechanism back in first. The paper patch goes in here, like a little cardboard plug. It goes over the end of the shaft for the sprocket shaft. and I'll put that in last of all, I think, and then put the leather back. So we'll consider that done at the bottom of the camera for the moment. We'll come back and finish that off. Now we need to think about the top and the film advance and so forth. So I'll ready myself for the film advance.